But what we saw this year was the beginning of the Farage reform revolt, which I think will just get bigger and bigger. We saw the two old parties struggling to captivate enthusiasm. Yes, Labour won, but we all know it wasn't really a vote of big enthusiasm in Starmer's Labour. And the demise of the British Conservative Party, the demise of the Tories. I think 2024 will come to be seen as actually a seismic election that is ushering in this new era of realigned.
Stay tuned as we immerse ourselves in the unforgettable moment when Nigel Farage dramatically changed the course of events, live on air, shocking the audience and forcing the presenter to try his best to keep up. It was truly exciting. Believe me, you won't want to miss this summary of one of the most iconic political interviews in recent times. Nigel Farage has always been a controversial figure in British politics, but his latest live performance has taken his reputation to a whole new level. Known for his outspokenness and bold views, Farage found himself in what many considered a hostile environment for an interview. It was just incredible.
Things can only get worse coming from Labour, but that's pretty much what he's been saying. I'm kind of guessing that psychologically, whilst there will be tax rises in the budget, they won't be quite as bad as we currently fear. I think that's the game that he was playing with that sort of, Private Fraser, we're all doomed speech. But it does actually rather sum up his personality, doesn't it? I mean, he seems to have almost no joy in his heart or humour. There is the sort of slight edge of the authoritarian, which comes to the surface pretty quickly and is certainly manifesting itself, if you believe the leak to the Sun newspaper on outdoor smoking this morning. No honeymoon, no joy, but I think the real thing was the speech yesterday in Germany about populism. Snake oil salesman.
The presenter was ready with difficult questions, but what happened was a real masterclass in political maneuvering. Farage didn't just answer questions. He captured the conversation like a conductor directing an orchestra. His calm and confident demeanor turned a potentially controversial interview into an exciting show, demonstrating his incredible ability to maintain composure under the pressure of criticism. From the very beginning, as soon as the cameras turned on, it became obvious that Farage was in control of the situation while the presenter was trying his best to keep up, as if trying to catch up with an elusive opponent. The interview culminated with a question about his relationship with Donald Trump, a topic that many might consider explosive. But instead of evading the question, Farage boldly defended his ties with Trump, passionately emphasizing the economic and diplomatic benefits of this relationship. He didn't just ignore the criticism, he responded strongly to it, giving convincing examples of how Trump's policies, especially on global trade and security, were in line with Britain's interests. He argued that strong ties between the United States and Britain are vital, and that leaders who put national interests first deserve respect.
The election's over. Labour have won. It's a foregone conclusion. That's done. It's over. The question is, who is going to provide opposition? And the Conservative Party will be in opposition, but they won't be the opposition. They hate each other. They're split down the middle. And what we need is a voice in there of genuine opposition and alternative. The Conservatives can't provide that reform if they win seats in Parliament. And
what makes Farage stand out from the rest? His performance in this interview was a clear indication of what many consider his main strength: authenticity. In the world of politics, where carefully rehearsed phrases and fake smiles reign, Farage's genuine approach is perceived as a real breath of fresh air. His answers were not just prepared, they were filled with meaning, directness, and clarity. He sounded like a man who sincerely believed in his beliefs, and it couldn't help but attract the attention of the audience. Farage speaks from the bottom of his heart, not according to a pre-written script. And this causes a storm of emotions. Such sincerity is becoming increasingly rare in our techno-modern political climate, which is why Farage continues to resonate with so many people. People are tired of empty promises and hypocrisy, and his straightforward style stands in stark contrast to the usual political rhetoric, making viewers feel like they are finally being heard.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think we have to give credit to the Chancellor for a budget that, in terms of political presentation, was very, very clever. I think the SNP have had an absolutely rotten day. I think the decision to put money into potholes was clever. The fuel duty-frees, very, very welcome, especially for those living in rural parts of our country. But for me, the big one, of course, is the 1p a pint off draft beer, which I've worked out will save me over £1 a week, so I'm particularly thrilled with that. But economically, I sat listening to the numbers thinking this budget is illiterate. I don't know who's doing the sums, whether perhaps it's the Right Honourable Member for Hackney North, but the sums do not work. And the markets now agree with me, because just in the last couple of hours, we've seen a very substantial spike in gilt yields. We're not quite yet back to 2022 with that mini budget, but clearly people are saying this isn't going to work.
One of the most exciting moments of this interview was the dynamic of the relationship between Farage and the presenter. While the host was trying to take control of the conversation with rapid-fire questions and harsh accusations, Farage remained completely unperturbed. When the conversation turned to controversial topics, he did not hesitate or stumble. On the contrary, he boldly intervened in the discussion, turning every potential attack into an opportunity to demonstrate his confidence and competence. The more the presenter pressed, the calmer Farage became, creating a striking contrast. Farage's ability to maintain composure and pass the presenter's arguments in real time demonstrated a level of control that few politicians can match. His victory in this interview is not just a personal triumph, it is a significant step forward for his Reform Britain party. The party has been steadily gaining popularity in recent years, and this interview only strengthens its position as a powerful catalyst for change. For many voters, UK reform is associated with a break with the status quo, and Farage's willingness to discuss difficult issues, from immigration to economic policy, resonates with those who feel ignored by the main parties.
Nice try. I was just gently teasing, that was all. Invest, invest, invest is what we heard at the start of this budget speech, and I thought, yes, that's what we need, absolutely. Not just the big multinationals that come to smart conferences, but equally, hundreds of thousands of people putting their own risk capital into startups, into new businesses. But no, this invest, invest, invest is going to be done by the Chancellor on our behalf. Not just a top economist at the Bank of England, but she's now going to be the fund manager of the nation, investing money and trying to pick winners. And I would suggest the last time governments attempted back in the 1970s to invest money and pick winners, it ended very badly indeed. I will give way.
As Farage continues to demonstrate his outstanding leadership qualities, more and more people are beginning to perceive Reform UK as a real alternative in the political arena. With each election cycle, the party has made impressive gains, increasing the number of seats and boldly challenging the traditional dominance of Labour and the Conservatives. This is not just a fleeting trend, it is a powerful movement. And Farage is at its forefront, inspiring people to change. Compared to Starmer, it's not easy for him, but that's what makes his achievements even more significant. Farage's successes vividly highlight the weaknesses of his political opponents, especially Labour leader Starmer. The contrast between these two leaders couldn't be more obvious. While Farage confidently and clearly handles difficult issues, demonstrating determination and charisma, Starmer often looks indecisive and overly cautious, which causes disappointment among voters. This confrontation becomes a real arena, where Farage shines and Starmer gets lost in the shadow.
Maybe one or two members of the House ought simply to grow up, but there we are. It's a bit sad. And I've worked in private business myself, and I do wonder, I do think picking winners is wrong. I think we leave this to the free market and we let people either make money or we let them lose money. And frankly, if they do their dough, well, that's just the way these things work. Any business employing 5 or more people has today been hammered. And I make the point that I've set up companies and run companies. Nobody on the front bench has ever worked in private business. Nobody on the front bench understands what genuine risk capital is. Our business secretary, from what I can make out, has never even had a job. But the most dismal part, no, I've had plenty of jobs. Well, apart from being in the European Parliament, which doesn't really count, obviously. But I got to tell you, what is dismal about this budget is the growth forecast.
His tendency to avoid controversial issues is deeply disappointing to many voters, which raises growing doubts about his ability to lead effectively. Farage's unapologetic style only highlights these shortcomings, and this dynamic is becoming increasingly apparent to the public. As Farage grows in popularity, Starmer's apparent indecision robs him of precious support, and it creates the feeling that he is losing ground. The reaction to Farage's interview was simply overwhelming. On social media and in political circles, everyone is in unanimous agreement. It wasn't just an interview, but a real turning point that changed the rules of the game. Supporters perceived Farage as a leader who was not afraid to openly express his thoughts and defend his positions, while even his critics recognized his ability to confidently manage the situation in the audience. It was the moment when Farage shone, and his confidence inspired many, leaving the rest in the shadows.